I want to invite up here for the panel our Roger Bell, Brian McCracken and John Egerton, please. You saw them on the video. They're all spruced up now, so you mightn't recognise them. But you're very welcome, gentlemen. Now, and just to remind you again of the Slido technology, you probably have already entered in your questions. I'll be asking Sean Kane from time to time just to provide some of the questions that are coming through at this stage. Right, I'm going to start with, just to kick things off, I'll start with our three farmers and maybe ask each of them just to give a reaction to the two presentations you've heard. So I'll start with John first, please.
Hello. Yeah. I suppose it's hard to believe that it's 7 years over it now for me, for I've been measuring grass for maybe 5 or 6 years before that, but it's hard to believe that time has passed so quickly. My biggest achievement in the GrassCheck, I think, is my son William. He has taken over part of the farm with sheep, and he has seen the benefits that I have gained from GrassCheck and measuring grass, and he has now took on to measure his own farm himself. I think that gives me the most pride in GrassCheck to see that I have passed that on to the next generation, and if we could pass that on to other farmers, I think it would be a tremendous benefit. Right.
Thanks, John. Brian, do you want to?
Well, I was just thinking about a few years ago that before I was involved in GrassCheck, and we had a New Zealand advisor. I was talking to him about getting involved in something that Jason had bullied me into, and
Jason wouldn't do that.
He would, and he just said, I says, why should I do it? And he goes, well, if you don't do it or don't get involved, how can you contribute? And the thing is, I think with GrassCheck, I think it's been really good that we can contribute what we know from our own farms, but we have the access to excellent people. Sinclair spoke earlier on, and he's up there, from my childhood and from college and so on, and men before him and men after him. So those are the things that we have the opportunity to use, and with GrassCheck, it has opened doors. I find that been really, really good.
Yeah, Brian, sorry.
Yeah, well, I thought I was quite a good farmer until I started GrassCheck, actually. I thought I was doing rotational grazing and pushing our farm to the limit, but it enabled us to push it a lot further, really utilising grass, maximising what we did grow and utilising that grass. For the summertime, and this summer was different from any other summer, we had to do different things, but we were able to make informed decisions quite early on. We had to do different things this year than we ever done. We ended up strip grazing some of our silage ground with our cattle. We were really quite intense through the middle of the summer. We were probably grazing 50, 60 acres and 70 cattle and 500 ewes on that grazing platform through the middle months of the summer. So every about Wednesday, Hilary tells me, I'm running out of grass, Roger, I'm running out of grass. We did actually run out of grass this year, and we ended up making this decision to graze some of our silage ground, but these decisions can be made when you're studying your figures.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Jason, could I just ask you one issue, just as you were speaking there, is what's the percentage of Northern Ireland farmers that are actually measuring grass in your view?
Well, we've roughly 50. We've roughly 50 within the GrassCheck network. I'm guessing there's probably another 50, maybe 100 on top of that, but it would be fairly low. It's not the uptake is not huge.
It would be higher among dairy farmers, I imagine. Brian, would that be right? Do you think? Certainly in the south, it's higher, isn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine it is, but I suppose the number is relatively low.
Yeah.
In the south, it's a different mindset, and well, it's a different system, different education, different programs. So I think that's the big difference.
No, but I mean that has to be a major objective. Obviously, I mean, not just in terms of profitability, which is the first issue the farmers will focus on, but in wider focus around sustainability issues and so forth. Have we any Slido questions coming through there, Sean? Are you going to throw up a few there, please?
Yes, so the first question, how do we integrate the issue we have with soil pH in Northern Ireland? So low soil pH, how do we integrate that into GrassCheck?
Okay, who wants to jump at that? We ask Sinclair maybe?
Okay, well, the answer is apply lime and then overcome the low soil pH issue. I mean, I think we all know soil analysis and applying lime is crucial. So the first step is soil analysis. I think I've got the question right. Is that right in terms of...
I think the question was, can GrassCheck provide... Was that the question, Sean?
Yes,
Can GrassCheck provide information on, or integrate the lime, for example, lime status issue with...
Yeah. I mean, what we
production.
can do is look at the pH status on the individual farms and see how that compares with the grass yields. Jason showed the variation between fields on farms in grass yield. So, one of the first things to look at is what's underlying that. Is it soil analysis? Is it PK, pH, or whatever? But, I mean, I think the message is very clear that, we want to get pHs up to 6.4, 6.5. But what we might be able to do through GrassCheck is actually look at the cost of low pH. What's it costing you in terms of lower yield? So that's something we could do. I don't know if we have. We wouldn't have individual soil analysis on each of those fields, Jason, to be able to do that.
I mean, I know it's something we're looking at in Chagas, extending the base of information, but there is a cost in accumulating that as well. And it's not just lime, fertilizer use generally. Okay, any others coming up there, Sean?
Yes, so Sinclair outlined the utilisation in 99 on beef farms was 4.1 tonne dry matter per hectare. What does the utilisation look like now?
Well, I would hope it's improved since then. I mean, those figures, how those figures were derived back then is that it looks at beef production and the amount of land involved and the extra feed going in, and it takes the feed away to look at production from grass. So it's not an accurate exercise, and I'm sure on the best beef farms, they're averaging utilisation up 10, 12 tonnes, similar to the best dairy farms. The problem is we don't have those figures across the board for all farms, but I would say the average utilisation might have gone up a small amount, but basically there's still a massive range between the best and the worst farms, and there's a big challenge and an opportunity to improve that, to get closer to the 8 to 10 tonnes, and I think that's the sort of objective we should be looking at.
Could I just ask one issue? I know when I talk to farmers about, I used to talk to farmers about grass measurement and grass utilisation. Some of them would say, I started off measuring and then I found it a bit of a drudge, so I eyeball now and I'm happy with that. Would any of our farmer panellists sort of, talk about the importance of at least benchmarking your eyeballing of the cover with the actual measurement?
I think it is important to be able to eyeball. It's a skill in its own. I know for myself, I would be clipping away, and my son would clip away, and I find that is, for me, a system that I like to do, because then you can get down and you can feel the sward, and it's you can calibrate yourself, I think, easier than with a plate meter, in my opinion. It's open for discussion, but I think that is the easiest way to do it. And whenever you can see and you can feel and you can understand what's in the sward, even clipping it, it's more resistant, quality is obviously not as good as it was. Those are things that are important as well.
And would you find that, as you keep on measuring and so on, and eyeballing, you're getting better at just assessing what the cover might be, or?
I would like to think I am.
Yeah.
So you need to learn something. But I think things change as the season goes on, as dry matter changes, as grass quality is different from a reseed to a non-reseed. I think there's a massive amount of information that you're trying to analyse in your head at the same time as you're measuring.
Okay. Roger, do you want to comment on that?
Well, like I always try to benchmark myself. I always have been trying to guess how much grass is on the paddock and then to see how close I am. But still, it's very important to have that figure, to have it on AgriNet, and that you can look back and compare year on year and to see how different paddocks are doing in different stages of the year. Definitely, I can see a lot of beef and sheep farmers or part-time farmers, and it can be a bit of a drudge to plate meter every field. But I still think it's very important to get out there and walk the fields. Even you don't use the plate meter, but get out and walk the fields and see what you have and see what's in front of you and the quality and how different paddocks are performing.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, well, it's actually Hilary does all the plate metering, and she does every single field in the farm every week. Just the plate meter gives you it is okay eyeballing, and that's quite good to eyeball it, but it just gives you a real accurate figure, and it gives you quite a consistent figure. And there is changes throughout the year as grass gets stemmier, to be fair, but we would go quite a lot on our weekly farm cover. When we're getting it real tight there in midsummer, it's great to see if that weekly farm cover is going up or going down. Slightly harder, I think, for a beef and sheep farmer because he's not as stocking's changing throughout that year. Your lambs is getting bigger, your lambs is eating more grass, so it's really good to go by that weekly farm cover. And if your weekly farm cover is heading up, well then you're okay, and if it's heading down, then you're in trouble. You need to start and bring in more paddocks.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Any more questions coming up there?
Yes, okay, so the benefits have been discussed this morning of measuring grass. How do we get more farmers to participate in grass measuring?
Very important point. Who wants to pick that one up? How do we get the message out there?
I've got one farmer to do it on it, so if everybody in this room could get one other farmer to do it, that's always a start. It's difficult. I know it's difficult. People look at me with the plate meter and they think that the guy's mad in the head. It's difficult, but one by one, it's our duty to try and train other people. And it's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah,
I think it's important as well that there's a responsibility through our education system, whether it's college or whether it's university. Who's teaching them? What's the quality of that education? That is critically important. I know, speaking from personal experience, the detail in the south would be a whole lot more than it would be here, because there's a clear message as to the benefits. Maybe it's in the north. There definitely would be other influences, whether it be from feed companies and people just have lost faith in grass and just need to look for the opportunities and the profitability that comes from good grazing management.
But I'd be one of the first to admit that we in the South learned an awful lot from you guys and the kind of directions we've gone. We still have a massive road to travel, though, in spreading the message.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the key messages coming out of today is just the year-to-year variation and the within-year variation. And I think, as Roger said, if you're not measuring it, then, I think that's why people lose confidence in grass, because they can't tell what's happening. You can't plan and react ahead. Whereas if you have that measurement, and I think it's highlighting the variation and how grass measurement can help you cope with that. But I mean, the downside of that all is that the complexity of grassland management and so on is driving a lot of people to keep cattle inside.
Yeah.
And if you drive through Northern Ireland at the minute, I'm surprised at how few cows and cattle are out. Through the summer in areas where traditionally you would have seen a lot of cattle. And I think that does reflect the challenge of using grass. So we need to be able to get better at telling people, how do you manage it? How do you make it easier through measurement and so on? Otherwise, the trend will continue towards indoor housing.
Just can I take a few questions from the floor here, please? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, we get you a mic there.
Just on that, what are the practical steps for a farmer who wanted to join? Where do they get the plate meter? Do they go to the CAFRE? Is it through AgriSearch? What's the practical steps of wanting to start?
Jason.
Cormac, I think that's a very good point. And I know it's something you'll see on the thing there, the idea we have of maybe do we need to do something up here like what we have in the Republic with Grass 10, is some of that practical information of, 101, getting your plate meter, calibrating it, the measurements, using a system like AgriNet or Pasture Base as they do in the south, and putting that forward. I think going back to the earlier question here about, how do we get more farmers doing it? No farmer would think about operating a diet feeder without weigh cells. Yeah. So why would you think of operating your grazing platform, which is the bulk of your feed, without actually knowing what's on it, what's coming down the track? You wouldn't, So I think you're right, Cormac. I think there is a job to do maybe in actually introducing people to the basics 101. If I want to get started, how do I go down that road?
I think in the video earlier, I thought there was a very good point made about the importance of discussion groups in supporting measurement. And of course, there's a little bit of an abeyance now, as I understand it, in respect to the discussion groups here. But they're an essential support, because I would imagine it takes some time to acquire the skills to measure and interpret the data. It's not. It could take up to a year, I would think. Realistically. I certainly know from talking to farm member meeting one of the farmers of the year, a young chap, and he said he went into his first discussion group and they were being taken through the practices. He says, I didn't know what they were on about. But he said, it was 7 or 8 months, I picked up the confidence to go out and try it out. Any other questions? Gentleman here, please, yeah.
First of all, maybe an answer just to one of the questions that have come up, but the question is to how well grass has been utilised. We, using a UME system, analysed what was produced in 1995 and what is produced today, and in actual fact, there is a decline of about 15%. Sinclair said that he would like to think it was going up, but in actual fact, it hasn't gone up as such. Which raises the question, which has been very rightly brought up, as to why or how better can the information from GrassCheck be got over to farms. But I just also suggest that there could be the use of what we've referred to as a UME system, which means utilisable, metabolizable energy on farm to be complementary to the GrassCheck information. I don't know what's thought about that, but that would be my thought about it.
Yeah, I think I was struck by all the farmers here recognise the importance of using quality data, quality information. Maybe you might have commented on that. Any of you? Brian, do you want to just on the ME information, for example, or protein information?
I couldn't really comment. I'm not really that good a nutritionist. I follow the information that I'm given.
Right.
I know from our own grass samples what we've got. Even your observation of this year, it has been a poor sunshine year. Is that the reason? Is the reason because grass varieties are changing because they're a different growth pattern? Are they better? They look better, but are they carrying the same amount of energy? Because we have bred them in a certain way, and it takes a long time to do that. Those are the questions I don't know the answer to. Maybe David Patterson does, would he tell us? But I definitely know that we have. There's a preference. Only speaking on farm, there's a preference for cows for different varieties, and the ones that our cows like are the ones that we plant.
Right. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on the importance you attach to quality information?
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. We weigh our lambs, we weigh all our lambs every week to follow our daily live weight gains. And we see a fall in the midsummer of our lambs not doing as well, and this really just is due to the quality of grass, but we've had this challenge as well with reseeding fields and not getting performance from them fields the same as what we would off a road lays. So I think there is a challenge here to be looked at, and yeah, really is. I think we need to do a bit more on studying about our grass seeds.
Okay. Sinclair, do you want to add anything? Okay. Any other questions for our panel, please, from the audience? Sean, have you any others coming through in Slido?
So John Egerton mentioned about the longevity with mixed species for land in the West. Where is this and what can help overcome this? John?
Did I ask that question? Yeah, like I wish I knew. You know, the multi-species has a lot to offer. It's very difficult, as I said in the video. It's very difficult to manage in the West. It doesn't like wet weather, and it certainly doesn't like cattle tramping it. It's determined to die out. You know, that's up to the seed companies and that, I think, to come up with varieties that are more persistent. It does a good job for a couple of years, but it's not easy in the West, reseeding every 2 years or every 4 years. You know, we want something that'll last 10 years at least. So I haven't the answer to that.
I think, John, were you responsible for the phrase I took down here? I thought it was notable. It does everything it can to die out. Was that you?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, you know the chicory is the same. Yeah. It's the same sort of plant as a docken. A docken does everything it can do to survive and thrive. If you could get a docken to do the same as chicory does, you'd be hitting the nail on the head.
You'd be very happy, yeah. Okay.
We just need to call it something else now, I think. But you've guys like, as Paul Turley sitting here and Frank was on earlier on, but they're growing multi-species in a drier climate, different soil, still have struggles with it. But what I can see from is that it suits that type of environment. And maybe we should just grow things where it suits them to grow, because you might find it's easier to manage. I don't know. I think it's a challenge in the West to grow things.
But surely clover is the number one of the multi-species that we should be focusing on. Would you? I mean, it's probably still difficult. Not any easier, but
yeah. Clover probably is one of the most important ones. Anyway, it's difficult. It doesn't like getting tramped either, and it doesn't like its feet standing in water all the time. And this year, early on, we were relying on the clover to work for us, but the clover didn't start working until almost July. And what do you do in the early part of the season? You really need that early grass. And
it didn't work in County Down either until about July. So
I think one of the challenges we have is that all of our research stations and our grass breeding stations are all located in the more favourable areas in Northern Ireland. It's been a long time since we had Castle Archdale, which used to look after farms like John's, and actually, I think there hasn't been near enough effort put into what do we need for those wetter farms in the West in terms of what is the right thing for them to grow. And I think Brian hit it nail on the head. It's horses for courses, and I know David's going to tackle some of this in his talk this afternoon. It's getting the right sword for the right place, for the right purpose.
And I think maybe it was John mentioned it as well, the importance of variety research.
Jerry, I was just going to make a comment. I think it's really important we get the answer to this, because I would have serious concerns about fertilizer as we go forward in terms of all restrictions and so on that we already have and are probably only going to get worse, and talks of increases in price and so on with carbon tax. So there are issues there about fertilizer. So we definitely need to look to alternatives to pure ryegrass nitrogen swards on the majority of farms. And to me, it's about grass clover, has to have a role. And I do worry, certainly going back to the agronomy that I had at an earlier stage, the more complex the mixture, the more difficult it is to manage, because you're trying to keep all of these components in. Grass on its own is hard enough to manage. Grass clover is a step up. But I think to go to multi-species swards for a lot of farms is going to require a level of management that is even higher. So to me, I think we have to relook at grass clover and just see what we can do with the appropriate varieties and the strategic use of N fertiliser to get that spring growth and to cope when the clover isn't contributing.
You know, I know there is a view in certain quarters that the issue we're talking about today is just an issue for farmers, but like you put your finger on it. I mean, that's a critical issue for the environment. It's a public policy issue. I mean, if we're expecting farmers to reduce chemical fertilisers and maintain grass growth, the cheapest possible source of animal feed, and at the same time we're not providing the kind of research and advisory support that helps them come up with a sustainable alternative in terms of clover or whatever, that's not acceptable.
That's exactly the point. And the question is, as grass production decreases, compound feed will increase. And then you get into other issues in terms of phosphorus and everything else as well. So I think government needs to realise that we need to be able to focus on producing high yields of forage to reduce the reliance on imported feeds.
Sean, have you any other questions coming up there?
How far away is the technology of drone? How far away is the technology of drone or other technology to measure grass for me as a part-time average sheep farmer with a full-time job? Good luck with that one.
Anyway, I don't know. Jason, are you into drones, are you?
Well, we have on our own farm been using, it's not drones, it's the satellites, but it's the satellites still will need a number of measurements in a year to cross-check it and to verify it and to put it in. I know Debbie did some work in drones and had great difficulty in getting the R-squared, only 40% reliability. These technologies will improve, but they all need ground truth. So, yeah, it might cut out half, 2/3 your measurement, but you're still going to have to do a certain number of measurements a year to keep the thing truthed in. So, yes, I think these technologies will help, but it'll not remove that entirely. They all need ground truth.
Yeah, no, Jason's right. There's, a huge amount of work. I remember being at the COP in Glasgow a few years ago, and it was very clear there was a lot of work done on satellite technology. The drone would be a development of that at a small scale. But look, we're talking here about sometimes the most effective research or innovations are quite basic. We're talking about here farmers walking grass and grass measurement. The benefits from that, very, very basic type of technology, are enormous. And it's just the challenge of upscaling it is really, I think, one of the core issues. Sean, any more coming up there? Anyone from the audience, please put up your hand. Yeah. Question here. Got a mic over here.
Thank you. Just a comment on the mixed species swards. Where people are treating mixed species as if it's an ordinary grass, firing on nitrogen or not firing on nitrogen, we have taken a different look, a different approach actually to mixed species at home. There's other elements to keep mixed species growing. You have to look after it slightly better. Your rotation is slightly longer. We have got a tailor-made fertiliser for us, and we put it on 100 weight to the acre, not very much, with low nitrogen, a bit of P, a bit of K, but boron, zinc, sulphur, and different elements. And we have been quite successful in keeping the majority of the herbs. We have taken out chicory because it doesn't really do for us. But we have fields like lettuce, fields of plantain. And this is some of the wetter fields on our farm, and we've had, last year was a disastrous year for grass growth on our farm, but we have taken a different approach. It's like growing a field of barley or growing a field of wheat or growing a field of red clover or perennial ryegrass. A different approach, I think, needs to be taken to make mixed species survive.
Okay, we'll take that as a comment. Look, if there's any other questions, we'll take them now because we're just up against lunchtime. I'll just ask the panel if each of them... Sorry, is there one here? Where's the hand up? Oh, sorry. My apologies. Yeah. Got a mic there, Jimmy.
Could I maybe congratulate Roger? I sort of agree with you on old swords. I have old swords down maybe 40, 50 years, and it's good to they were reseeded. As a lot of people know, I'm an advocate of pre-mowing grass. And the worst thing you do to a crop of grass is take a heavy crop of silage off it or a heavy crop of hay. As long as you keep the weeds out, the Scotch grass down, grass lasts a long time. The second part of my question or his comment is perhaps all the information you have, particularly on a county basis, regards to rainfall, etc., can that not be used in the future to change the rules for spreading slurry? You know, down south it's regionalised. Can that be done in the county basis in the north? Thank you.
Anyone, Jason, you want to?
Well, I suppose the issue, it is regionalised, but if you look at Northern Ireland, we're probably pretty much in parity with their Area C, which is, Donegal, Monaghan, and so on. So I think if we try to regionalise it, we'll probably make it worse for some people. There's always danger in these things. You can actually make things worse. You could look at soil moisture or so on, but you could actually end up restricting yourself more. It's a very careful one to follow. Maybe Sinclair, you've been involved in negotiations, but yeah, it's tread carefully.
I think the point about the fact that you have very old pastures producing high output, I guess I think what comes across to me this morning presentation is the variation at every dimension, but like between paddocks, and that's really the information you get out. And then if you have old grass performing very well, you don't have a problem. It's the ones that are not performing well that you have information on, hard information that you can do something about. Look, I just want to wrap up maybe and ask each of the panel, starting with Sinclair, in terms of where we go from here, what would your priority be for GrassCheck?
Well, to me, I think a lot of the work that Jason has outlined is where the future...
You go along with that.
To me, I think there's a lot of value in that. I think the grass prediction model is important. I think grass clover, bringing that into the GrassCheck, whether include it as a separate element. And I think also there is potential there to look at fertiliser planning in terms of historical growth and projected growth. What does that mean in terms of optimising fertiliser use? Because I think we are going to have to get a lot more efficient at using fertiliser, either by cost reasons or restriction using. So it's been able to use GrassCheck to optimise when we put fertiliser on.
Yeah. Jason, I suppose you have a long list there. Was that ask you to pick one?
I think probably clover is what we're going to have to look at, and I'm keeping it some very simple, the white clover and so on. How do we incorporate that in? And obviously I think Cormac put the thing in, how do we get more people adopting these technologies?
Yeah. John, where would you like to see it going?
Yeah, well, I can see the benefits of a nutrient management plan to go along with the grass growth. As you've seen by some of the slides, we in Fermanagh we can grow lots of grass. Our biggest difficulty is utilisation, and other people have that difficulty for different reasons. And if we could do something to improve the utilisation of the grass, it would be massive.
Roger.
Yeah, I think just get more people involved in it as well. Like we did sow extra fertiliser this year, and through GrassCheck we learned that we had a very poor response from it. So it's just been able to make them real good decisions throughout the year and let you see what works on your farm. Like every farm's different. I'm different from, 2 mile down the road. So it's really good to have that individual farm help.
Ryan.
I think it's very important. Let's go back to brass tacks. It's about pounds, shillings and pence for the average business out there. And if you can educate the farmers that aren't using it, that they can see there's a higher live weight gain. I know it's a continual process, and they probably have banged that drum for a long time. Am I improving my live weight gain? Am I reducing my days because we're restricted in days in finishing cattle? That's going to be another thing. And are we improving our milk quality content, especially protein, when it's going to be the driver for our income for the future? Because really it's all about milk solids in the future. So to me, we have to get that message across. If you can improve your yield by 2 tonnes a year and your utilisation, how much is that worth to me at the end of the day? I think that's very important for the farmer out there.
Absolutely. Listen, can I ask you to put your hands together for the panel for our 2 speakers and our excellent farm members?